What is up, everybody? I am extremely tired, but have no fear. I'm here for the intro of Operation Gundam History. That's right, our first official breakdown of an episode of Gundam. We're kicking things off with Gundam the Origin. That's right, that is the first chronological series in the timeline of Gundam. So if you haven't watched episode 1 and 2, I highly suggest you pause this podcast for now. It'll still be here. Come back to us. We miss you, but we'll be here. We'll have snacks and water for you at the door. And go watch those episodes on Hulu if you have Hulu. If you can buy it and afford to pay for it, by all means, buy it as well. Flex on us. My friend George blessed us with his presence as we go through this journey through Gundam the Origin. That's right. It's said Gundam the Origin, not Gundam Origin. Without further ado, here is myself and George talking about episode 1 and 2 of Gundam the Origin. All right, everybody, what's good? I got a treat for y'all. We are finally jumping in to one of the series in the Universal Century. But before we jump in, I got to introduce my guest. He hit me up. I was so glad, so happy this is happening. Give it up for it's George Loftus.
Hi, everyone. How's it going?
Yeah. So, first off, you had the PSP games. You were talking about the series and whatnot. Like the DMs on Twitter, I was like, "Oh, this is the one. This is the one. This is what I want to talk with me about this."
Dude, I've been obsessed with Gundam since I was 10 years old. Like I growing up, I always thought Star Wars was going to be the coolest thing that I ever saw in my entire life. And then, and then one afternoon, Toonami decided to air Gundam Wing, and then my life was changed after that. It's like there was a version of me before Gundam, and then a version of me after Gundam, and I've just been permanently changed by Gundam. It is such a cool franchise.
It's like and it's funny you say that because I feel like Gundam has the benefit of doing what Star Wars wanted to do, but animated, in my opinion, better in some takes.
Yeah, I can see that.
Now I know I have some friends that might hit me up later, be like, "How dare you, say these blasphemous words against Star Wars?" I'm sorry, y'all. I didn't grow up with Star Wars. I grew up with this. This is my thing. This and anime, other animes,
Well, that and like Star Wars, like I love Star Wars. It's incredibly cool.
Yeah.
But growing up, all we had were the 3 movies. Sorry, I'm 30, almost 31, just for context. Growing up, we had the 3 movies and then like some video games. It got better on the N64. And then that was actually like what got me into comic books, was the fact that like they were making Star Wars in comic books. And I was like, oh, that's cool. Like I want more of the story. So that's how I got into that medium. But man, Gundam Wing just came out and like it was there for me every day for like a year, like
it was so sick. Yes.
And it had just a killer J-pop soundtrack, and I'm like, what the hell is this? I've never heard anything like this before. It's incredible.
I gotta say this. Thank you, Jason DeMarca. I know you'll never hear this, but if you ever read my email in your inbox, thank you very much for giving us Gundam Wing and all the block that was Toonami, and still is Toonami.
Oh my god, dude. Like, 1999 to 2002, like, I don't mean to disparage later Toonami just because I wasn't there for it, but like when I was watching Toonami, every day was just a 98 mile per hour fastball, like just straight over the plate. It was incredible.
So like we moved to Japan in 2002, and I think that was one of the biggest things that I missed, was just being able to like after school go home, do my homework as fast as I can, and then watch Toonami and be able to just watch all this stuff happen on screen. Half the time I didn't know what was going on, but I was like, yo, this is the best. This is the coolest thing I've ever seen in my life. Like, what is happening? I love it.
Well, it was just like I grew up on an island off the coast of Maine, so like I lived like a pretty sheltered life. Like sheltered's probably not even the right word, but just like a very isolated life. And so it was like probably my first exposure to like, Eastern cultures was like through like was through like anime, and I'm like trying to look it up right now, but like. Yeah, Ronin Warriors was like the first show I remember like being obsessed with. Like just coming home from school. That show was
so good.
Yeah, just doing my math homework like as fast as possible just to like be done in time so I could just like focus on Ronin Warriors. Like that do we swear on this podcast?
We can swear. Yeah.
Okay,
yeah.
I'll try to save just like 3 just so like there's like better emphasis when I do. That shit was so good, man. Like it was just everything I didn't know I wanted. And so to like segue from that and then like be exposed to like Dragon Ball Z, The Big O, Rurouni Kenshin, like just everything they were throwing at that time. And like, granted, they had the benefit of like 15 years, I guess, of like modern anime developing in Japan, so that they could just like pick and pluck like the best stuff just to throw at Western audiences. But it was such a special time to be, you know, like this weird prepubescent kid who like didn't know any better and was just like open to new stuff. Like it was really awesome. Like I don't know how to explain it to newer generations.
And like the added benefit was like we were some of the ones that first experienced that coming to America. Like that was the first time it getting to the States and seeing like, you know, Japanese cartoons and all the other foreign works. We're like, whoa, this is so much cooler than watching, you know, what was it, Batman animated series?
Yeah, I mean, let's not say things we can't take back. I mean,
I mean, I like those too. But I think the like the characters and just how different they were compared to like watching the American like cartoons and comic book based stuff.
Oh, for sure,
that like did it for me.
They had completely different ideologies. They had completely different motivations. Like it was just like such a amazing like just exposure to something so categorically different than what you were used to. You know, like there was just like such a weird emphasis on pride, like in those early shows I remember watching. And not that like American shows didn't care about pride and honor and that stuff, but it was just different, you know?
Yeah, it was very different. Very different. But you know what else is different? The art style in Gundam the Origin. I messed that segue up so bad. We are going to dive in to episode 1 and 2. Episode 1, Blue Eye Castfall. Episode 2, Artesia's was it Sorrow?
Yeah.
Sorrow.
To be fair, they don't really know how to pronounce it in like the Gundams I've seen. Like it changes between Artesia. Like it's a little fluid with how they pronounce it.
Yeah. They definitely took more liberty with the like I guess the prequel and like giving them accents and like dignity, showing that they're royalty and whatnot.
Yeah.
So like when who is now Char was Edward, you know, it was a very emphasized to be Edward and not Edward.
Yeah.
Even though that's what we wanted to look at and say.
Oh man, so this is the tough part. So, okay, real quick. When I was like heightened most obsessed with Gundam, I was like talking to the people at Suncoast Video. I was talking to the people at Borders, and I was like, is there any Gundam thing you can import for me? Like, can I order it to the store here? And one of the first things I got was Gundam the Movie.
Ooh.
Which was like the compilation of the original series.
Yeah. One.
I couldn't find one until a couple years ago, to be completely honest. Like I got movies 2 and 3, and they were like the dubs.
Nice.
And I don't care about dubs or subs. Like I really just want the content. I don't really care. Like I'm able to forgive. I'm like, oh well, the voice acting was weird. Like that's fine. I can forgive that if it is the case. And so it was so weird just because I went from Gundam Wing to that, which was made 20 years before Gundam Wing.
Oh, yeah.
And so I was just like, why does this look like crap? Gundam Wing looks so good. And this was like before the internet was like ubiquitous. So I couldn't just like, oh, this was made so much earlier than Gundam Wing.
To be fair, Gundam Wing is, if you ask some people, the worst dubbed of them all. So
oh my God, no, it's iconic. Yeah, it's iconic at this point though. I'll kill you. It's like, I just invited you to my birthday party, man. Like, come on.
That scene is honestly one of the coldest scenes in anime history, but it's just like, man, Huey, like, relax. Just a little bit. Relax, bro. Like, it's not that serious.
Hey, man, he had a mission. He had to save the colonies from Oz. Okay, he was a little preoccupied. Didn't have time for a debutante birthday party.
You hate to see it, not being able to enjoy life. Well, the year now is UC 0068. This is how, well, really, the series of Gundam kicks off, and of course, the 1 Year War. So, first off, the intro to it was really cool and like sick. It just sucks they gotta wait like a good 4 or 5 episodes so you really get the Gundam action.
Yeah.
But yeah, like, what do you think of Blue Eye Castle? I liked it because it reminded me of how really slow this series can be, but it gives you the details, and like there's so many little things that get lost where, you know, most people are like, oh, I want to watch these suits fight. It's like, whoa, here's why they're fighting. Here's how we got here. And it did a really good job of giving us like, hey, this is how Xeon started. This is the person who was over Degwin. And these are the zombies who are evil. And there's this little tiny family of the Rawls that are no longer relevant. But what are your thoughts on Blue Light Castle before we really dive into this episode?
I was kind of against this series when it was first announced, to be honest. Like,
really?
Yeah, man.
Okay.
I thought the mystery of everything and like just sort of like hearing things and like finding weird fan translations about, you know, like video games that had discussions, like just like all that stuff. Like I thought that was super fun to do, to be honest. Like I felt like a Gundam like archaeologist at that point where I was trying to like figure out the secret history of this thing I enjoy so much. And I was kind of against this series. And then I saw it and like, do you think this was at all influenced by Game of Thrones? Because
I don't. So
politics,
I've never watched Game of Thrones.
Okay, all right,
Ever.
Yeah, it's fine.
So,
okay, so you're literally the worst person to ask. I'm sorry.
It's all good. It's all good. Sometimes you just gotta put it out there, see what happens.
Yeah.
I'll make a reference later on that you are not gonna understand, and it's okay.
Okay. I think so. The original series, like I'm gonna be contrasting this with the original series, which I know pretty well. I assume you know it fairly well.
So I'm actually watching the original, like 79.
Okay.
Like, this is my first time watching it.
Okay.
So those notes that you've seen, like this is my first time watching Gundam 79, which I like it. It definitely feels like a 70s cartoon.
Yeah.
But there's elements of that I really do enjoy.
All right.
But
and just
it's also not as dramatic as this.
Sorry, for clarity's sake, are you watching the original series or are you watching the movie compilations?
Oh, the series.
Okay.
I bought both disc on Blu-ray.
Hell yeah. Thank you, Right Stuff Anime. Yeah. Getting the people the good stuff. All right.
Thank you.
So I'll be contrasting. Okay, that's great. Because like I know the original series super well. And so that's why I was a little disappointed when they announced, because like they can really only work on like one project at a time. And so when they announced they were doing like a prequel series to the 1 Year War, I was a little like, man, but I feel like we covered everything. So I think what makes the original series kind of genius is that it takes place during the 1 Year War and it starts like 8 or 9 months into the 1 Year War.
Right.
You know? And so it really picks up fast because you're just like, okay, we're in the middle of a war. And this is sort of showing how every domino fell to set up the war. So I was skeptical when they first announced it. And then I watched it. And man, it is just like such a slow burn, like borderline political thriller where I'm like, oh, okay, this is at least different from the original series to the point where you guys aren't just regurgitating stuff that we've heard. Like you're like really diving into extreme details that I wasn't quite expecting, because these are specific chapters taken from what's called Gundam the Origin, which is like a manga series that sort of rewrites the original series and like changes some things, but it's nothing major. You know, like when White Base first comes to Earth, it originally lands on the East Coast, and like the manga series changes it so they land on the West Coast. Like it's just like little things like that. But then, man, just like seeing like all the heartache and pain that these characters went through before they are fighting what's called the 1 Year War. It's just like, oh man, these dudes have been through it. Like they have gone through so much stuff just to get to a point before they go through even more crap. Like it's kind of amazing what they were able to pull off. And they turned skeptical me. I like this series. It's not my favorite Gundam, but man, they do so much with so little. It's really impressive.
Yeah, and like because I've been looking into like the different novels and the manga series and whatnot, because a lot of this stuff was written like way long ago, and just now getting like the backing to, like be put a series. This is what 2015. It went from 2015. Origin went from 2015 to 2018, and like when was the manga originally ran? It was way before that, right? Like I want to say.
I don't know when it came out. I know like when it started showing up like in the States, like after like translation and republishing and all that stuff.
Yeah, but it was probably 10 years prior to this, maybe?
It might have started then, but like I don't remember seeing like volume 10, because I used to live in San Francisco and I'd go to like a bookstore in Japantown all the time because I was like just looking for this stuff. And I don't remember seeing the final volume. Like it might have just been like out of stock, and I'm just like, you know, projecting like my experience to be the true experience. But I don't remember seeing it there for a while, you know, like.
Yeah, because when this was out, I was when this came out on like the movies came out, I just finished undergrad. I was working and in grad school. So I really wasn't like enjoying life.
Sure.
But like getting to see this now, like after like fiending for like Gundam content, watching 79 and all the other stuff. And it's like, this is so great to see, because I went back and watched Gundam Wing and then 8th Assault Team, MS Team.
Hell yeah.
And they hold up and they look good.
Yeah.
But this just looks so good. It looks so good. That intro sequence is so fire. And then like we were talking about it before we started rolling, but it's the details in the face and like the outfits and just all the little things that you don't get with some anime nowadays. You get it with Sunrise and their content. Well, they did a really good job of like emphasizing those small details with the characters.
It's super funny because like the original series had like no details at all, right?
No.
And so I think it was like an influence of like the Gundam model line, like the Gunpla stuff, where they just added like a whole bunch of like random lines to like this, like the legs and the arms. And it was like, oh, you can take a marker and fill this in and it'll just like add more detail. In the original series, there was like none of that stuff. They wanted everything to be like smooth and like uniform and whatnot.
Yeah.
But then like the Gunpla scene got so big and they started like adding like the actual panel lines to like the Zaku arms and stuff. And they just reflected all those details in this like OVA series. And it was just like, oh crap, man. Like that looks like the best possible model kit I could see at like some sort of competition or something. Like it was incredible. And like it looked, I mean, it's like clearly like CGI, but like it looked better than like, like a Gundam video game, which like I wasn't really expecting it to have like, such like high detail models of the actual mech units. It was really impressive.
Yeah, and like it was just like I said, it's just buttery smooth. Like I play a lot of fighting games, and so I play a lot of Arxis fighting games. So they're really good at doing that 2.5D and really pushing that Unreal Engine. And it felt like I was watching something that Arxis would have made and be like, oh yeah, if they'd been a game that looked like this, I'd buy 3 copies.
One for me and all my friends. You missed your day, dude. Back on PlayStation, they had Gundam Battle Assault.
I know. I didn't have a PlayStation back then, but maybe I can go find them now.
Oh man, that game rules. I don't play fighting games, so I don't know like how good it is as a fighter. But like just being able to like put like Wing Gundam against like a High-Gog from like Gundam 0080, it's just like, oh man, this is like all. It's literally like
fantasy
playing
battles.
It's literally just taking action figures and just smashing them together. It's super fun.
I gotta find like videos or something of this.
Well, that came out before a lot of the series were dubbed. So you just like, I'd see like, okay, I know that's from 0083, that's from Gundam Wing, and then you'd see that like this one suit. You're like, what the hell is that? Like where did that guy come from?
This one's neat.
Yeah.
Is this new series dropping? New to you?
Yeah, and it's just like, no, that actually came out 20 years ago. And you're like, oh damn it.
But now we cut to Daikун's supposed to get his speech. And I actually have a video clip. That's right. We've raised the production value. I got a video clip for y'all. Hold up. Let me.
You expect me to sleep at a time like this? If I am asleep, how will I be able to rouse my disciples? Astraya, I'm running out of time. They'll drag me to Golgotha to execute me tomorrow. And when they do so, I will address the world from atop my cross. I will warn them that those sinners who incur the wrath of Gaia will soon be engulfed in hellfire and be annihilated!
You're exhausted. You need your rest. Please.
Where are the children?
They're sleeping.
And we can kind of stop it right there for that clip. So I think that's important because it's almost like Daikun is foreshadowing what's going to happen to him. Like he already knows that his time's running out. Like he's against the clock here. There's things going on, but he has to give this speech and set things off because remember, this is Monzo, right? This was called Monzo. Make sure
the city.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They're on their city, Monzo or Munzo. I think it's Munzo. And Zeon wants to be independent from the Federation because the people that live in what they're calling Zeon have always been in space, have never been on Earth, and don't believe they should be governed by the people of Earth. Which, what does that sound like? The founding of what country that just had their Declaration of Independence celebration? Right. So like they have some footing there, but he's trying to spark this, not an actual war, but he just wants to get his people interested in wanting their freedom from the Federation. And I love that he goes mad with power, because it seems like everybody who wants to spark a revolution at some extent gets kind of like drunk off of that power,
Sure.
/ drunk off of those feelings and whatnot. But ultimately, it's always their downfall, because there's those other people lurking in the shadows, which is where we get the zombies. Now, what do you think of the zombie family? I think the zombie family is completely fucked up, in my opinion.
Oh my god, dude, they're the goddamn worst.
They're the worst. Like, you get to the you like after his scene where, of course, he gives a speech. It was poisoned and he dies, and like they're like, "Oh, we're so sorry," blah blah. But it's not genuine. It's not sincere.
Sure.
Like the zombies know that they're behind it, and so it's just like this family's so gross. So I hate him. I hate him so much.
Oh man,
really
yeah. I don't know if you have the heart for Game of Thrones then. Like if the zombies are turning you off that much. I don't know. I don't want to step on the toes of future episodes of your podcast, but like, are you?
Yeah.
I assume you're going to cover like the original series and like the
Yeah,
movies at
we're
some
gonna
point.
cover the original series. Yeah.
All right. There's one line. Is it all right if I talk about something from a future episode?
Yeah, go ahead.
All right. There's one line in Gundam the Movie 3 where like there's a clear break between Gihren and Daegwon. Like Daegwon's like the father figure, right? And
Yeah.
Gihren is like his most ambitious son who just like he just has like just shitbird energy, you know, like you just look at him and you know you're supposed to hate him. And
You get that too later on in the origin.
oh
we'll
my
talk
god,
about that
so
later.
much, it's ridiculous. But there's one line like later in the series where like Gihren is telling Daegwon about his plan that he wants to do to the Earth Federation to like win the fight. And Daegwon's like, "Oh, hey, from history class, do you remember that guy Adolf Hitler?" And he's like, "Yeah, it sounds familiar. 20th century, right?" He's like, "Yeah, it's so strange to see my son become the Adolf Hitler of space."
Damn.
Like, he basically just says that. And, like, it's removed
Damn.
from the context of, like, I don't know, like, World War II was, 70, 80 years ago? So, like, we're a little bit more familiar with it, the context of what calling someone Adolf Hitler is than they would be. But he's just, like, Gihren kind of takes it as a compliment, and Daegwon's just like, "Yo, I gotta shut this shit down as fast as possible. Like, I need to fix this situation."
But like that's the thing though, because the symbolism of like of Zeon at this point is you see a lot of blonde hair, you see a lot of blue eyes, you see a lot of the red and black flags with their sign on them being raised at rallies and on posters and whatnot, and they paint Zeon as pretty much close to being Nazis as they can in space.
Yeah, God, it makes me so uncomfortable because like I love the Zeon like design aesthetic, like not for like their calligraphy, like I don't give a shit about that, but like the mobile suits, I'm like, man, the Zaku is so cool. But like in my head, I'm like, well, they're the Nazis, and like you're just agreeing with Nazi design aesthetics. That's kind of messed up, man. Like keep that in mind. Just like keep that in the back of your head. Like you can think the Zaku's cool, but like it just like don't don't pull that thread. Like.
Yeah, and I think I don't know. I've noticed it was with a lot of like Japanese creators in animation is that they pull on the WW2 symbolism and Nazism a lot because it's very, I guess, still fresh and relatable.
Sure.
Especially for that culture when you think about like where they've been and what side of the war they fought on, because it can tote that line where it's like, all right, now let's slow down, let's calm down. But you get this and like people are just going crazy and shouting for freedom. But they do this amazing job of showing Zeon as being the oppressed.
Yeah.
Like, this whole time you're watching this, you think that, oh, the Federation is evil. They have them under the strict lock and key. They have the riot outside where they start hosing down protesters and whatnot. And, like, it's they go full into, like, hey, Zeon is a little guy. They should be free. And like, oh, yeah, they should be free. That's what they want you to think.
Well,
and so,
especially like in the context of like growing up with the United States, like you're just growing up, you're taught like, oh no, you fought for freedom. Like that's what the 4th of July is all about. That's what this country's all about is freedom. And so like you hear that and you're instinctually like, well, those are the good guys. They just want to be free, you know?
Right.
But then you just like peel back the onion a little bit more and you're just like, yeah, I appreciate people wanting to be free, but like what they're talking about isn't freedom. It's like freedom to be fascist is like what they're ultimately doing. You're like, well, that's not great. That's not what you want.
Exactly. But now we go from that scene, like, and this is only like the first 6-7 minutes. We're only maybe 10 minutes into the show at this point, and you just get kind of like snowball after snowball after snowball of stuff going on. But you fast forward to this meeting where Dagwin's like, "We'll take care of you," blah blah this, blah blah that, and like, this is Jimbo Raw. No, this is Rambo Raw. Rambo Raw's not having it. So in the Zeon Federation, or well, on Moonzo, you have the Raw family, you have Dagwin and the Zombies, and then you had Daikun, who was the founder of Zeon and the teachings of Zeon.
Right.
Which we'll get into that actually in episode 2. But like, these three families are coming at a head, and the Raws kind of seem like a helper family. And after this conversation they have, they're like, "Oh, we're gonna help y'all," blah blah blah. Ramba's like, no, and this is what Ramba has to say, which kind of sets Char, well, at this point, Casval, into what his future self's supposed to be.
Yeah, it was super weird to see like the breakdown of families, right? Because it felt almost like capos, right? Like in like a mafia, where it was just like the different families like run different areas of like daily life. And so it was so weird to see, like, again, like another, this might be like another Game of Thrones illusion. But it is just like the different families and like the different banners, and like, okay, we'll unite under certain circumstances, but otherwise like we're looking out for ourselves. And that's just like such a weird origin for Ramba Raw, considering his context like in the original series, where like he just shows up and he's like a consummate professional soldier. And I'm not saying that he doesn't do that here. Like, we definitely see hints of it in this episode and the second episode, and actually like the whole series, if we're being honest. But just to see like Jimbo Raw, like his dad, like where he stands, and then seeing like Ramba Raw and like how he fits into the equation, it's really fascinating to peel back that layer of Gundam and sort of expose some flaws in, you know, like what was originally just like super direct character development, you know.
Yeah, and with that, we're going to roll the clip.
Lady Australia, may I have a word with you? You must not trust Dagon Zabi. Those loyal to his family might be behind Daikun's assassination.
Impossible!
No, I am 100% certain of it. Protesters are rioting outside. Why is that? Daikun's death has yet to be announced to the public. It's obviously because somebody leaked the news. I'd wager Dagon's second son, Sosro, had a hand in it. Dagon has been trying to get Daikun out of the way for ages. And so that's why he poisoned him.
Mr. Rawl, don't say these things in front of the children.
No, it is the children above all others who must hear these things. Your father was assassinated, murdered by those Zabi fiends. We must act with the utmost caution. Firstly, we must get you to my home. Come!
So, we meet Ramba. That was Jamba who did all the talking, and he even said like, "Hey, the children need to see this because X, Y, and Z." And those two kids on the bench, one of those becomes the the arbiter of our series. I don't know what the right term would be for this one, but he's the one who sets the shit off essentially, and that is going to be Casval, aka Char.
Yeah, buddy.
And it gets pretty weird because you get to this B plot in the episode where Sosro said something because Cassilia like helped the kids like get to the Raw's mansion or whatever. Sosro's like, "Why would you do that?" and slaps her. And you meet Sosro, Cassilia, Dozel, and then Giran a little bit as well. Dozel's the only one of the group that has a heart, and it's pretty prominent throughout these like episodes that he understands like, yes, sure, I'm a soldier, but like I want people to get along and like be respected and treated a certain way, and we got to protect people the way they are. Which I feel bad for Dozel because he's a really good guy in a really shitty family.
Oh man, he's such a dick in the original series though. Like, what's amazing though is he's the only character in the original series to like have a family though.
Yeah.
And so like it's kind of cool to like see him like, oh, like he just generally cares, which is nice and different.
Yeah, because like you don't want, like, to be fair, I would never want to have Giran have children, because if he's already evil, what's the spawn of evil going to be?
Oh, that's so dangerous. Yeah, that's not a good exercise for humanity at all. Yeah, no, don't do that.
And we already know the fate of two other ones, which we see Sasro in like a couple minutes get blown up, and Cassilia set that up. And Dozel, which honestly, one of the most badass scenes in this episode is when Dozel has the stitches in his face.
Right.
And he hops out and starts yelling, "The children!" They just bust. And he's like, "Ugh!" And standing there.
See, this is the part that kind of like, this is like one of the moments where I'm just like, did we need that? Because like he has a whole bunch of scars on his face in the original series. And it felt a little bit like in episode 1 of Star Wars where like we see Anakin build C-3PO. And it's like, all right. Did he have to build C-3PO? Like, did
right.
Like, is that really where he had to come from? Like, just to build like another connection? And so
I think
it was just like like you had to explain the scars. You absolutely had to. But again, you're right. It was a total badass scene, like him emerging from the car, just like half on fire.
Right. And so you get to that, and like you're like, damn, this family is just so messed up. We got sister assassinating brother. And like Cassilia kind of like brags and gloats into it and like slyly tells Garen, and Garen already knows. Mm-hmm. And it's like, he just kind of like, whatever, do what we gotta do. But the real plan here is to kill the children, which insert it's Ramba, my bad. I'm gonna get those confused until Jimba's gone.
Yeah.
Ramba and his plan to get the kids out by Haman at the club. I like the nightclub. I feel like that was a good like mutual spot to just kind of have where things were chill, even though it was chill. It's like, hey, we got to do this in secrecy. Well, kind of a little on the nose of being underground,
right? Like it's good vibes because like you don't really see like we see the worst parts of the life in the Gundam series, but we don't really see them like enjoying anything.
Yeah, and that's true. There's not a lot of downtime and feel good moments in this series
in literally any of the Gundam series, except for the one where like Gundam is a fictional thing and like they battle versions of the model kits they built. That's the only time you ever see these, like anytime anyone has fun in Gundam, which is like a meta-textual Gundam series, which I don't know how I feel about. But in like the Universal Century, no one smiles. Well, like, why would you smile?
No.
Like,
because there is constantly war, and then when they give you those brief moments of, oh, look, there could be peace, something tragic happens, and you're just like, what do you mean?
Yeah.
What's happening? But, we get, like, Cassilius goes and confronts Casval, the child of all people, and we start to build what is gonna eventually be the Legend of Char, how he's, 6 or 8 years old, and like, I'm not afraid of you. Like, I don't care who you are. I am not afraid.
Mm-hmm.
Like, what a baller. Like, what are your thoughts on that? Because, like, we're getting a lot of, like, character development of Casval right here and there. Like, the formative years.
Sure. Yeah, and it was him establishing, like, I'm not going to be the kind of person to back away from a fight, which is just going to have such an impact on the rest of the Universal Century. Good God. I wrote a note. So I had a couple of beers the other night when I was, like, rewatching this. Did you get a little uncomfortable during this scene?
I did. I have the clip if you want me to pull it up.
Yeah, is it just me?
I recorded it.
Was there a little too much like sexual energy? That part.
Let's look. We don't have to play the whole thing, but it gets really weird.
Yeah, and like it's really important to note that like even though Cassilia looks so much older than Char, she's really only a couple years older than Char. So, like, it's, it's one of those things where I guess, I don't know. Like, I have no idea what the intention of the scene was. I just know I was uncomfortable. Like,
she'd be like 13 to 14 years old.
Yeah, but she's she's built, 8. Dude. She's built like there's woman. like a woman's NFL league in space. Like, she is so yoked out of her mind in this scene.
And, like, there was one part where, what was it? Something happens in episode 1, and I didn't notice it in my first playthrough, but she's full on naked walking across the screen. I was like, oh, this is what we're doing now. Okay, all right. I was not expecting this to happen.
Yeah, and there's actually,
but it felt really weird.
There's a little bit of nudity in other Gundam series. Like there's like a couple shower scenes in the original movies, like the original compilation movies, and then in like Gundam 0083, there's like a shower scene. But it's like never overtly sexual. It's like always like, oh, here's like the fragility of humans in the middle of the technology they've created. Like it's never horny. But like Cassilia was like the first time it was like horny energy. It was such a weird change of like just a weird direction for them to go. But like she's always super confident. So like I guess it's in character that like she would not be, you know, like ashamed of being naked in a room, you know, like she's just very commanding just in general. But yeah, that was also just weird to see just like such aggressive boobs in a Gundam cartoon. That felt like a first. Yeah.
Cause yeah, there's this whole 4-minute scene I record. I'm not gonna play it, but it's just 4 minutes of her who appears to be a grown ass adult with a child who really they're only like maybe 5 years difference in age at this point in time.
Yeah,
and you're just like, this is not okay.
Yeah,
like I kind of don't like this at all. But we get through that and like, you know, Raul has his grand master plan to bust them out of their captivity, which honestly, the deception is really cool in that whole scene. Having Haman come in and say, "Oh, I gotta take the kids' orders," blah blah blah. But you really get to see, because I mean, obviously this is Castball's episode. You just get the drama that goes in. You get to see the symbolism of Zeon. You get to see like the families divided and whatnot, the infighting between them. How there's a struggle within, like, you know, like the real struggle is, which they mention at one point, the space noids and the humanoids, which when you watch Gundam 79, if you ever watch just like Gundam Wing or Gundam 79, which is the Origin Mobile Suit Gundam, they don't really mention the space noids versus humanoids things.
Well, it's space noids versus Earth noids was the thing.
Earth noids, yeah. Is Earth noids or humanoids or both?
I don't recall humanoids from anything. I just remember Earth noids and space noids being like not quite derogatory, but like not quite positive either.
Let me change it in my notes then. Yeah, the Earth noids, because if you were to watch it straight up at a certain point, you get kind of lost. Like, why are they so enhanced and so different and whatnot? And they kind of explain how Daikun and Zeon are just like, yeah, we're in space. We're trying to achieve X, Y, and Z, which we're going to talk about in the next episode coming up pretty soon. So you get that name drop, but you're also like, what does that mean? Like, that's your actual conflict of the whole series. It's not Federation versus Zeon. It's Space Noids versus Earth Noids.
Yeah, and like, I guess it kind of plays out between Earth Federation and Zeon, but like it really is like, this came out like after Unicorn Gundam, which I think is like one of the best series of Gundam ever. If not for the
so beautiful,
sick animation, like the score in that I think is like one of the most beautiful things I've ever heard. Like I just listen to that score while I'm doing work.
That score reminds me of My Hero Academia, but like better.
It's just,
I don't know why.
It's such a gorgeous
so good
orchestral arrangement. Like it's genuinely beautiful. But they really hint at it there, and it's important to remember that like the Origin came out after Unicorn, so like there's a whole bunch of like extra layers of context when we just like see them struggle, and we're just like, as the audience, if we've seen Unicorn, we're just like, oh, but they don't know certain things, and I'm not gonna say what they don't know because spoilers for future episodes of this great podcast, but it's just really interesting to see like what people think the fight is about, and then like what the fight becomes in later series. Where it's. Like I said, I was against the series when they first announced it, but like, man, the layering that they get to add in to the entire Gundam mythos is just, it's incredible. It's so good. It's so good.
And now, it wouldn't be a rescue mission without things going wrong. I'm actually going to play this clip. It's 2 minutes, 30 seconds. I'm not going to play it all. You're going to get the key parts, but if you remember, they're trying to leave in the gunship, the gun tank. And they run into little crossroads where they get stopped by like 3 gun tanks. And, well, let's just say something goes down that a child should never do.
Who are they?
The enemy. My enemy, your enemy, even Mother's, everyone's enemy. And I'm gonna take them out. I see. I can fire from here.
Disengage safeties. Ready!
No! Please don't! If you fire that, they'll execute us! You know what? You can keep your money!
Shut up! I'm trying to concentrate!
Get open fire! Return fire! Return fire! Stop firing, please!
It wasn't me. I didn't pull the trigger. Could it be the boy?
Earth is a beautiful place. The sky is blue and it has mountains and forests. We have forests in Moonzone too. You're right, but Earth's forests are filled with all sorts of animals. What kind of animals? Nothing can stay the way it is forever. It's the same for you, Artasia. You have to grow up too. Grow to be a nice girl, then grow up to be a good person. Then you can make a lot of people happy, okay?
I think I can stop it there because that pretty much sums up everything. That is a child bloodthirsty in a gun tank. Like, this dude takes out 6 grown-ass adults, if there's 2 people per tank, without the single care in the world. Like, what were you doing as a 6-year-old? I wasn't trying to kill people. No.
I was like counting poorly, you know, like I'm not gonna pretend I was like an exceptional kid. I had my priorities and they were like, you know, God, I hope I get like 2 cookies today. That would be cool. You know?
Correction, he's 11. He is 11 years old. My bad.
Okay.
Artesia is 6 then. Something like that. But anyway, 11 years old. Let's just boom, boom, boom. Like, bruh. Okay, I get it. You're mad, but come on.
Also, it's just great because like there's all these things that like we know about Char from other series, right? And we're just like, oh, like his instincts make him like the most like special pilot that Zeon has or whatever. And it's just incredible to see him like his first go, you know, like in the cockpit of a mobile suit. This is like a weird retcon that like the gun tanks were everywhere. Because like in the original series, they were part of Project Victory, which was like them trying to develop a close range, a medium range, and a long range mobile suit to counter Zeon's mobile suits. And so we were always like led to believe that like gun tanks were special because they were part of like the Gundam project basically. And so just to like see them here, it's really cool to be like, oh, okay, so they existed before the original Gundam series. All right. Okay, I can swallow that pill because like there's nothing inherently special about them. They're just like really big tanks, you know.
Yeah,
like there's nothing.
Which we're about to get into the next episode because we find out mobile workers are just construction trucks that look like humans.
Yeah.
Which, fantastic designs, by the way. I wish our construction trucks and vehicles in the real world looked like humans because I feel like I would be less threatened by them, but I would probably respect them a little bit more when they're on the highway.
Sure.
Like, I don't want to get in that guy's way.
Come on, Caterpillar. Yeah, get at it. Come on, guys.
Right.
Quit dragging your feet. We're in the 21st century, damn it.
Exactly. We thought we were going to have flying cars and mech suits.
Yeah,
Alas, we got Teslas.
You liars.
That's about it.
Yeah.
But episode ends when we go to space, and we finally see space and how they escape what is going to be hell for their mother and Munzo as it breaks out into full-on resistance and war. Which obviously, like as a parent, you want to protect your kids, which is why she sends them away with that plan. Which we find out in episode 2, which we're going to go into, is that Haman was Casval and Artesia's sister. So or something like that, right?
Mhm.
I'm pretty sure that's correct.
Yeah.
Yeah, like sister. So that was their aunt saving them. But the real importance of episode 1 is just to establish who Zeon is and the internal conflicts within Zeon and how we get there. How Zoom Daikun becomes a martyr for the cause and gets put on the pedestal, but unfortunately what his actual teachings are gets muddied and lost in translation.
Completely
for most
bastardized.
people.
Yeah, just
Oh, yeah. For most people.
reappropriated by the zombies. Yeah,
It's so terrible because like if it was pure, I wouldn't mind like seeing Zeon do their own thing, like as a human being. If I was in that situation, like, yeah, like let them do their thing, that's fine, that's their principle, their belief. But of course you gotta have somebody stir the pot a little bit, that instigation, like, let's not do this.
yeah. I mean, I got this quote, and I'm sorry because I'm not entirely sure which clips you've played, so I might be covering something that that listeners have heard. But Daegwon Zabi says at one point, the Zabi family will shoulder the responsibility of history to come.
I don't have that clip, but I do know what you're talking about.
Okay.
That is a whoo, what a line.
Yeah, and
line.
just the arrogance of that is like, it tells you everything you need to know about the zombies. It's incredible. It's such good villain making.
I love me a good villain. I love me a good, just, righteous villain. And like the zombie family kind of scratches that itch a little bit. And it's like, ooh, they could be so much better if they just weren't pure evil, but just like chaotic good, you know?
Mm-hmm.
But, all right. Let's go on to episode 2, Artesia's Sorrow. Which, in my opinion, I think this episode title is a little misleading because she's only really in the beginning and the end.
Mm-hmm.
But I digress. But one of the coolest things happens where we learn about, you know, not only what Daikun's teachings were, but we see the mobile workers and the beta project that leads into the mobile suits, which is fantastic. But any thoughts on episode 1 you want to share before you hop into episode 2?
Yeah, just again, I was surprised at how much I liked it. And I think they do a tease, because I'm not going to lie, 10-year-old me got really into Gundam because of the kick-ass, you know, robot battles. Like, I thought that was insanely cool. And this had, like, barely any of that in it. You know, like, it had, like, the opening, like, the Battle of Loom in the beginning, which is, like, where Char's legend is kind of born on the battlefield. And then it had Char grabbing the gun tank. And so, you know, I'm not 10 years old anymore, so I can suck it up if there aren't giant robots punching each other. I can survive an hour without that. But
as much as we don't want to.
Yeah, it's not my ideal, but I can live with it. But it was like really impressive just to see them sort of like pick at so many things that like fans have sort of speculated about and just like balance them all so precariously. Because like we knew as fans that like there was another zombie kid who died, but we had no idea like really how he died, you know? Like,
yep.
Like excuse me, sorry, didn't mean to Rick and Morty all over this microphone. And so like we knew like, oh yeah, he died in a bombing. We're like, okay, but like what does that mean? And so for them to like actually like fill out the context and like use that to build up like the mythology of the other characters is like, I don't know, it was just really well done. I wasn't expecting this when they announced it, and I was pleasantly surprised. I'm like, okay, I'm not 10 years old anymore, but this feels like it's not made for 10-year-olds, so that's okay.
Yeah. And I think I mentioned this in the interview episode that I did with my friend Cody, where they've done a fantastic job with over the 40-year history of this franchise being very consistent and like having the big details stay big, and they're prevalent throughout the whole series. It's not like, oh, it's mentioned once but never again. It doesn't really play anything. Oh, no. We're going to make sure that if something happened in this period, it is affecting like the whole story. Or if it happened here, it's got to like be consistent the whole 42 years we've been doing this.
And it's pretty amazing considering how many Gundam series like fill in blank spots, right?
Yes.
And so like like there was the original Gundam series, then there was Gundam Zeta, then there was Gundam Double Zeta, then there was Char's Counterattack. And it's like that all went like
also 90 like War in the Pocket 83.
Yeah, but like but those happened later. So like there was Gundam Zeta, Double Zeta, then Char's Counterattack. It's like that all happened back to back to back to back. Like that was the linearity, I guess, like of Gundam series. And then all of a sudden, like for the 10th anniversary, that was when they did 0080. And they were like, okay, how do we tell a story that doesn't break any pre-established rules? And like Gundam 0080 is probably it's not my favorite, but I think it's like realistically the best done Gundam series. Like I think it's 6 episodes. It's fucking incredible from start to finish. And it just
I got that.
It just kicks your heart in the balls. Like it'll just ruin you. It is incredible stuff. But like they do that without breaking any rules from other series. And like this was like such a kind of risky proposition to take just by like doing this series. But like I don't know, like aside from like the gun tank being already established, like they did a really good job of like expanding the mythology without breaking the mythology.
Yeah. And we can explore more of that mythology right now with Artesia Sara.
Hell yeah.
So we're on Earth now. They're in Spain at first, something like that.
Andalusia,
Yeah, they're with Diablo's place. Which really kind of like you see Artesia's 10 years old and she's basically doing like nursing stuff and helping people and whatnot. And we finally get to see who the real Char Aznavour is, where they're like horseback riding and stuff like that. But I think they hit us off with this really interesting part in the beginning. I'm gonna roll the clip, but if you can see it, let me know, George. But all right, here's the audio. I'll be right back.
Yeah.
Mr. Casval, focus, we're not done. This is the most important part of the lesson. When he had the realization of the historic duty of space noids and turned mankind's reformation into an ideology, that was the moment when the grand concept of new types was born. In every age, prophets have been solitary figures. Even Daikun's ideology was not readily accepted by the people. Are you listening to me, Master Castfall?
Huh? Of course.
Then let us continue. Only after humankind has gone into space, where they can see Earth as a single living organism, will a time of evolution finally arrive. These new types will not only transcend current imperfect human communication, but they will achieve true mutual understanding and gain new physical possibilities to become this world's most... Which brings us to now! Munzo is trying to rebrand itself by calling itself Zeon! The audacity! Spearheaded by those zombie swine who were responsible for the murder of Zeon Daikun! There is no doubt in my mind that your father was clearly poisoned! They gave him small doses of poison over time to weaken his heart until finally he...
That clip's mad important because it gives you... That, like, gives you a little slice, little tease of what's going to happen way down the line. But that was the original teachings of what Daikun was trying to like give his people. Like, we can achieve this higher being if we just continue to do this, be in space, leave Earth, X, Y, and Z, and we can all become one. Which, and you mentioned it earlier in Unicorn, they really hit on that. Well, obviously that's what the whole thing of Unicorn's about, but they really hit on the new type theory. But like I said, they give us this little slice of like what that is, and when you think about it, they drop this off now, and like if you haven't watched Gundam before, you really don't get to see that until way later down the road anyway. But I think that speech is like super important because it's supposed to unify. That's what it's for. That teaching is supposed to unify, and they bastardized it.
Yeah, they completely just hijacked the meaning of it. And what's interesting is like that's also kind of a parallel. We were talking about like Nazi Germany earlier. That's kind of a parallel there too, because there was this German philosopher, right, named Friedrich Nietzsche, or Nietzsche. I don't know the non-douchebag way to say it, so I'm sorry if I offended anyone. But he was talking about the Übermensch, right? And like the idea of the Übermensch was that humanity would eventually evolve to a point where they didn't want or need anything. Like there was no good or evil. Like they would just simply like exist without any sort of desires or fears. And so like that was like his theory about like the evolution of humanity. And then like the Nazis were like, wait, did you say Superman? Like an actual like better than other people man? He's like, well, no, that's not really what I said. And they were like, no, that's what we heard, man. And then like they just like took that to be, and they like completely perverted that to be like, you know, like the Aryan superiority. And so like it's just so funny that like they found a way to like sort of mimic that same situation, but like come up with like a completely contextual way. Because it's like, yeah, of course people are going to develop a certain way if they're born on Earth. it makes perfect sense that if they're born in space, they would develop a different way, you know, because like all of a sudden you've taken them in a completely different environment with completely different motivations, goals, like everything, not to mention just like a completely different, you know, surrounding and stimuli. So like, no, like it's so good. Sorry, this is like when I was talking earlier about like how much I love Gundam. It's because they do crap like this, man, where it's not just like incredibly cool robots. It's also like philosophy that they just like sort of like just, you know, just drop on top like sprinkles. Where we're just like, oh, actually, this is happening too.
Yeah.
Just like, oh, that's so cool, man. You got the spiritual, you got the technical, and just the way it marries is so much fun to watch.
And it's good writing. Like, that's a really simple but effective and kind of elegant speech, in my opinion. Where if somebody was telling me that, I'd be like, "Oh, I get it. I understand what you're saying. Like, I can believe that. Like, I can buy into that." And I think just like it's just a masterclass of giving you a lot of information, but concise enough to where it's not going to overwhelm you and take over your like take you out of the scene or the situation.
Sure.
But yeah, that's good old Jimba before he becomes a bonehead, because Muzo transitions to Zeon at this point, and then Jimba literally 3 minutes later is trying to plot a counterattack and makes this big speech about, please let my man dream. What is a dream if what is a man if he can no longer dream or fulfill his dream, something like that? And his dream gets him killed because the military industrial complex only cares about one thing. That's getting paid.
Yep.
That was Anaheim Industries. Anaheim's like, oh, you want to give us money for something? Cool. Whatever. Oh, hey, zombies. You want to know where they're at? They're over here. This is where Jimba's at. And, bruh. Whew. The price to pay.
Oh my god, dude. Don't even get me started on Anaheim. I've got such a weird relationship with this business. Because, like, on one hand, like, they purposefully take the future into their hands. Where they're like, okay, we can completely dictate the course of good and evil. And they essentially become like the good guys, like in like way later series. Like when I say later, I don't mean like, you know, a couple years ago. I mean like when we go into like UC 120, when we go into like UC 150. This is all taking place, you said, UC 68, 70, 75,
This
73?
is like 68 to 79.
Okay.
This is like leads up to 79. So
yeah, like way later in the timeline, they become like ultimately good guys. But like, man, they just paint them like such perfect heels here, right? Like they're just the worst. And then like in Char's counterattack, like the big movie that they did as like a epilogue, I guess, to like the original series and Zeta, which is the sequel series, like they're completely neutral, you know, like they're generally supplying weapons to the good guys. But it's like the same thing that happens in like The Last Jedi in Star Wars, where it's just like, you think they only sell weapons to you? Like, no, man, they sell them to the Empire too. They sell them to the First Order too. Like, how naive are you? And it's just,
who's got the money? All right, cool.
Yeah, exactly.
It'll be everybody's customer.
God, it's so good.
We're friends.
It's so good.
Yeah, and like it reflects so much on what real life is too. You know, how people are like, oh, blah blah, this is the military. It's like we're doing this. Like, yeah, but we're also supplying that kind of stuff to other countries as well. Like, we keep saying that we don't do it, but let's be real. How did X, Y, and Z end up in X, Y, and Z country? You know, like only one country manufactures this, and they don't care who's buying as long as the money's still green.
Yeah, man. Why do you think the Taliban had a military? It's because the U.S. gave them equipment to fight the Russians in the 80s, and guess what? Once they beat the Russians, they still had all that equipment, man. Like it's just like when you like trace the cord back to the wall to be like, okay, like just examine like the cause and effect of dominoes. It's just like fascinating how it always goes back to one company trying to make a better profit. Like it's just ridiculous how that's always the same story, and it's always such a compelling story to watch because you're just like, okay, if we just take out these assholes, then things will be better. Like,
and as they say, follow the money.
Yeah.
Just follow the money. But this part's not important, but Sayla, well, Artesia, which is now Sayla because they have a new name. So Caswell's now Edward and Artesia's now Sayla. They go out, you know, we meet the real Char Aznavour, who looks just like Casval but with red eyes, which hint hint, they're giving us some foreshadowing there. But we end up getting, actually no, I jumped ahead. That's totally my bad. We get ambushed in Spain and this dude in a suit of armor comes and tries to kill everybody. He kills Jimba because Jimba deserves it. Let's be real. He messed up.
Mm-hmm.
But Edward comes through once again in the clutch with a nice stabby stab to the facey face.
Oh, yeah.
And to Texas we go now.
God, that was such a brutal fight scene, right? Because it's like it's that weird guy in like a suit of armor who's trying to kill these two kids, which is like already like not a great look. And then all of a sudden, Caswell he goes apeshit again, right? And like he's got some slits on his helmet, and like Caswell manages to thread the needle and just stick a sword right through like this dude's slits, and he just like falls down like a giant like staircase almost. Like he's on like a balcony, and it's just like
the balcony collapsed,
yeah,
and Caswell and them are just he's like bracing against the side of his window.
Oh my god, it's so just like visceral and like brutally violent, and like I don't know. When I was watching that, I was just like.
The guards got shot up outside the place too. They did not hold back.
But just watching it, I'm like, man, are mobile suits like are they somehow like more like a dignified way to die? Like are they like a more civil form of combat? Because you at least don't have to see someone be like completely dehumanized, right? Like
like there's some moments where I remember we'll talk about it later, but somebody didn't die and they just were floating in space. I'm like, oh, that's the worst. Like that would be the worst thing to happen. But for the most part, your suit blows up. You're gone too, buddy.
Yeah, man,
like,
you got a little compact nuclear fusion reactor on you. Like you're gone, but you're gone. You're gone in a flash. You know, like that's at least. Like I don't know if there's any like dignified way to die, but like that has to be better than like being stabbed in the face through like a half a centimeter wide like eye hole by some 11-year-old kid.
Falling
Yeah,
down.
exactly. It's so
in
brutal.
Rubble. Like. Because he's the dude's in armor, so obviously like the impact's not gonna kill him. But crushed with a sword in your face, like, oh.
Also,
you gotta feel all.
I have this in my notes that I forgot to say earlier, but it's such a good touch that they're in Spain because like I assume that's written down somewhere because like Yoshiyuki Tomino, the guy who did Gundam, did the original series. It got canceled. He managed to do like compilation movies a little bit later. That was like how Gundam became successful. And then, like, he wrote, like, novelizations of everything. So, like, I assume he has just, like, a master folder somewhere with, like, every possible detail of every person's life who's ever appeared in Gundam.
Aww.
But, like...
I'd love for that book to leak.
Oh, my God. I'd pay so much money. It's like the Wu-Tang Clan album that, like, Martin Shkreli bought. I'm like, okay, there's, like, no amount of money that I would deem too much to buy this. But, like, the original voice actress for the dub, anyway, for Sayla, she was Spanish as hell. She had just, like, such a thick, like, Castilian accent. And so, like, oh, that's why. It's just, like, them just, like, again, connecting, like, another dot. It was just, like, really, really cool to see.
Yeah. Again, they do a good job of, like, not leaving loose ends loose and making sure the story flows.
Oh, my God. It's such an airtight story. And it's amazing that it's, like, 50 years worth of crap at this point. Yes. And they managed to make everything, like, completely leak-proof. It's so good.
Yes. And, but as Casval and new family, go to Texas, Texas, you go to Munza, where the Zabi have just gone full-blown fascist. Ramba's pissed off because, he kind of got kicked out of his post or whatever because the Zabi family took over. But here comes Dozel to give him a little sneak peek of, you know what? The mobile worker, baby.
Man, okay, sorry. Hold on. Quick time out before we get to the big reveal of the mobile worker. I've been watching a lot of Rick and Morty lately just because like the new season started and I've been like I write like a blog and I'm trying to I want my blogs to sound smarter, so I've been like trying to read a little bit more philosophy just to improve that stuff.
Yeah.
But I got to like that one episode of Rick and Morty where it was like right after he turned himself into like Galactic Prison. And it's like him showing like that Galactic Federation officer like how to like develop like the portal gun or whatever. And they're like in the restaurant and it's like showing him between like his favorite sports blooper and him on 9/11. And there's like one little line that like Rick has where he's just like, oh, they're going to use this to take our freedoms away, when he's like pacing back and forth in his bathrobe, like watching 9/11 happen on TV. And it's just incredible that was exactly what happened. Like on side 3, like in Munzo City, where like they just use the death of Zeon Daikun to just completely catapult this society into a fascist overgrip. Like it was just and like they wrote this 50 years or 30 years before like 9/11 happened. You could argue that like that's kind of happening here, but like just like the mimicking of everything, of like life imitating art imitating life. It's just so fascinating to like everyone from like an outside objective.
I know most of y'all have a Hulu account or know somebody with a Hulu account.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
You can watch this.
Everyone's got a cousin with Hulu. Come on.
Exactly. But yeah, I like the like redemption. Dozel's like, because again it goes back to Dozel being a very kind and caring person, where it's like obviously you could tell that Ramba's like obviously pissed off. He hates where he's at. He's been deranked. Everybody around him's been promoted twice, and he's like, look, I just want some dignity and to live my life like with a purpose of some sort. And he takes him to the Dark Colony. He's like, hey, look at this mobile worker. And that scene when the mobile worker runs through the gun tank shooting at it and then cuts it in half. Oh, it's so sick.
It's so good. And like, dude, those characters are characters from the original Gundam series. Like, Rambaral aside, but like they have like, was it Ortega and
they're the 3 black stars.
Yeah, the tri-stars, man. Like, oh my god. Yeah. And so to see that, it's just so weird because we've only seen them really like in the context of like one of their missions against like the main character of Gundam, but like to see them here, it like before they've been radicalized, or like as they're being like radicalized, like towards like the Zabi's idea of freedom. Like it's so interesting to see them in this position.
Yeah, I think it's as they're being radicalized, because I think a lot of the military personnel are just kind of like, whatever, we just want our side to be free, and they haven't delved into the philosophy, because Dozel's been throughout the whole entire time. Dozel's kind of the only one who doesn't fully buy into what the Zabi's putting out. Like, he sees himself and is like, all right, I'm a soldier, but am I really like wanting this to happen? No, I just want to be a good soldier, live a good life, and do what I can to make sure that my people, the people of space, are free. So
yeah, because these are all like former like National Guard members, basically, right? Because like they can't have like an actual military, which again like mimics Japan's situation post World War II. Like they weren't allowed to have a military. Like they were a protectorate of the United States after. So like it's another thing of just like, you know, history doesn't repeat but it rhymes, or like whatever the saying is. Yeah. And so is them like having like their own militia, like they're ostensibly just like a super police force. And so it was them again, like we just talked about, but like radicalizing and being like, no man, like we've had a slice of freedom, like it's time for the whole damn thing. And like Dozel literally giving Ramba like the keys to the future. You know, just like sowing the seeds for what will be known as the 1-year war, a war that lasted an entire year.
Speaking of which, God, it's just, here's the clip that shows that mobile worker coming in.
Such good layering.
What in the world is that thing?
That's called Mobile Worker 01. And it is going to crush the Federation.
Mobile Worker?
All sensors functioning normally. Starting at a range of 600. Target standing by.
How'd you get that gun tank?
It's a Federation MBT we acquired through back channels.
And we're back. That was sick. Like just seeing like the beginnings of what's gonna be like the payoff of here's giant mech suits fighting each other in space. Oh, so satisfying.
Man, and yeah, I hate to be that dork again, but there's like 2 bigger illusions happening here, right? Like it's like the Manhattan Project, where like what Oppenheimer is just like, I am become death, when he like realizes like this invention he created is like how it's going to be used. And then it's also like kind of almost like a communist illusion too, right? Because it's like very specifically a mobile worker, you know?
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
It's like the space proletariat is going to like earn equality for all of space. It's just all these little details that like, whether they're intentional or not, they're just so much fun to think about, at least for me, where I'm just sitting there having a beer, watching some robots fight each other.
I mean, like I said, art imitates life, life imitates art. It all comes back and forth. So it's got to be based off of something. We can always draw those conclusions somewhere. But now we travel to the they don't have a last name. Casval and Artesia, or Edward and Sayla. Well, Mass is their technical last name now.
Yeah.
They're about to be adopted, but we go to Texas. But on the way to Texas, we meet a very special redheaded little boy in it with a hat, I believe, and a little green robot called Haru named Amuro Ray. We finally get to see Amuro, which Amuro is like probably, I think he's maybe a year younger than Sayla at this point.
Mm-hmm.
He's a child following his dad Tim as they go. They're also going to Texas, but they're going to a different side for a different reason. But Loom, aka Texas Colony, is where we end up at, where they meet the Aznavour family, which we all know the Aznavour is the last name of one of our leads, aka Char.
Yeah.
Where we see that, where I said earlier when I got my times messed up, Char and Edouard look exactly the same, except the real Char has red eyes, which you'll understand later is why Char always wears glasses so nobody can see his eyes, because he has blue eyes. But yeah, they get to the planet and their actual mother passes away, and then shortly after Lucifer, which we cut back to the Artesia sorrow part where we get them crying, her crying, because like Casval walks in like a zombie, where it's like mother has died, and then just earth shattering everywhere. Everybody's sad, and you get the note. I mean, honestly, she was treated awfully when she was locked away in her chambers, which sucks. Mm-hmm. But the promise is never fulfilled to see their mom again. So another blow to not only just Casval, but also Sayla, or I guess I'll say Edouard, but also Sayla. How they don't get to see their mom ever again. So they're really just kind of on their own at this point in time.
And was it here or was it earlier in the episode where Sayla's like, yeah, Mom, it's been 50 full moons. Like, they told me a full moon happens once a month, and that after...
It's literally right... this is the exact same scene.
Okay, got it.
Because she's writing the note out
brutal.
saying, like, it's been so many full moons, and then, boom, the news comes in, and, like, because the ink falls all over her notepad, she reads it, starts shaking.
I'm going to be so big when I see you. She says something like that, and you're just sitting there like... Oh, that poor kid.
Poor kid. Watching it again for the second time, it hurt even more because you're like, damn, she's just not going to have happiness for a long time. Because then, like, when Lucifer dies, the cat passes away. And it's like, damn, Lucifer, like, Croak too? Like, she has nothing. She literally has nothing. And, it's so bad. But we have another very pivotal Edouard scene where they're at the bar. This bar fight for a teenager is wild.
Oh yeah, but I don't know. You can what, drink at 16 in Spain? I assume in outer space times you could probably drink at like what, 14, like
something like that. I'm sure if we're in space at that point, alcohol is like it doesn't have an effect on people anymore. It shouldn't.
Yeah, just don't open the wrong door and you'll be fine. Yeah,
right. But he pours the beer on the dude, saying, "How are you gonna follow us?" Because obviously he has superior, intellect and very prominent and pays attention to what's going on around him, and just pours the beer on the dude. And the dude's like, "Oh, okay." And they scrap, and a teenager kicks a grown man's ass.
He like annihilates him. He like borderline humiliates him, right?
He could have killed him because he had the wooden plank with the 3 nails. Mm-hmm. I was like, oh man, he's gonna go Negan on him, but he didn't because once again, Sayla's like, please no, don't do it. The only times that Edouard stops is when Sayla's around and says to not do something, and he's like, all right, I'll do it for her. But literally 2 minutes later, he leaves because the real Char passes this test and is going to go to the Xeon Military Academy.
Also, dude, hold on, time out. I'm really glad you say that because, man, is that also true in the original series. It's, oh, God, the crisscrossing. Sorry, again, spoilers for future, but it's just, this is what we're talking about. We're just like, they did such a good job of telling a previous story without stepping on the toes of anything that was already established. God, okay, so watching it, I'm like, okay, this is better than I thought. But, like, talking about it with you, I'm like, fuck, man, this is way better than I thought it was.
Right. So, because like I'm 10 episodes in, I believe, about 10 episodes in on Gundam, Mobile Suit Gundam. Mm-hmm. So there's more scenes where Sailor's like stop and he does it Because I already got to one where there's a battlefield scene, but that's been the only constant that stops him from going over too far.
Right.
Like, it's, I guess this is one weakness, but he's still a cold-blooded killer in some regard as well.
He's the Red Comet. Sorry, spoilers.
He's the Red Comet. The Red Comet. But yeah, the real Char passes this exam, and here's like the first real anti-war claim that we get is his dad's against war. And he's like, you're not going to go to the military academy because Char dropped out of high school. And, oh, I forgot to roll this clip. That's also really funny. But it's a clip where the principal's talking to Diablo about like, oh yeah, your son scares me. His son scares a grown-ass man. I'm going to run the clip.
We have seen many young students pass through our doors over the years, but, well, I have never come across one like Edouard. He has a keen mind, acute sensitivity. He's a special boy with many unique qualities. However, there's a coldness to him. He's hard like a steel knife, just waiting to cut you. It's my concern that one day he will be the cause of some sort of catastrophe.
So Edouard is scaring grown-ass men and beating up dudes in bars immediately afterwards. And you know what? I think the military academy is for Edouard. Char, I don't know. Char's dad's anti-war, which, like I said, the first time in this series that we've seen somebody say, no, war is bad, war is stupid. What do you think about that?
I think it's interesting that they waited so long to sort of have that message, because that was such an important part of the original series. I guess like every Gundam series, when you get down to it, is like that's
like the main part. Anti-war, war's dumb, no meaning.
Like as a 10-year-old, I didn't get that. Like, you know, you'd see horrible things, but like, you know, like I said earlier, like I just showed up for like the big robot fights. But like watching it now, like every series is like heartbreaking, where it's just like showing you like the absolute worst parts of humanity is always when they're fighting each other.
Yeah.
Instead to do this here, like to do it like this, you're just sitting there, you're like, oh, damn it. Like it's like every person who like watches that movie Fight Club and identifies with Tyler Durden, and you're just like, no, bro, like you missed the point only entirely. Yeah. You know, like
exactly. Yeah, you don't want to be Tyler Durden.
Yeah, no, he actually is the worst. You should watch that movie again, but make sure you understand it this time.
There's an intro for one of the episodes. I think like the last 2 or 3 episodes in Origin, where the narrator comes in. I'm going to use that as the intro for the episodes, because it asks the question of like, when will humanity learn that war leads to nothing? Essentially is what it says. And it's like, and now here we are for this war that keeps on happening because people just don't learn, and they don't learn. There's also a really good quote in Unicorn I'm going to pull when we talk about Unicorn eventually in the series. So, but yeah, Char and Edouard go to the military academy, but Edouard has not got in, which that's in episode 3. But yeah, he just fucking leaves Sayla, bro. He's like, hey, I'm leaving. At the grave of not only their mother, but the cat. He's like, hey, I'm out. I'm going to the military academy. I don't know when I'm gonna come back, or if ever. It's like, what? Really? Like, you're just peacing out like this at a time like this, bro? You there?
Yeah, sorry, I lost you for a second.
Oh, where?
I was quiet the whole time. Yeah, sorry.
No, it was I was talking about like he's leaving for the military academy, even though he like his sister's in the worst place ever, which I guess it can be Artesia's sorrow because she's super sad at the very end, but the whole middle you don't really see her at all until like the last 15 minutes. But yeah, like we get this Edouard's gonna go off and do the thing and go along with Char, which we're gonna see in episode 3 how fucked up that gets. But
yeah, there's like a whole bunch of times where like Artesia, or I guess Sayla, like in the original series, is just like, I don't want to be alone again. And like, yeah, watching this, you get the context because like you don't really know much about her like in the original series, and then like you see this and you're just like, oh, that's what she was talking about. And then like remembering the original series and seeing this, it's just like, oh god, it felt like a fucking piano fell on me. Like just like the weight of everything adding up. You're just like, bro, that's what you meant. I am so sorry for dismissing that as a weird line at the time, even though it was, because that was like 40 years before this happened. You know,
Right.
Oh God, it's heartbreaking.
Right, but the key takeaways for this episode and my episode summary that I have is we hear the term new types and the teaching of Zyklon of Xeon Zoom Zyklon. We finally get those, which is really really important, setting up future series and motives. But Edouard kind of is like being shown as him developing and becoming eventually the Red Comet. You see more of his combat skills and just like being a quick learner and like already like ahead of everybody and plotting ahead. He has that killer instinct. And then we see, what I think is the most important part of the episode, we see the mobile worker in Dozel and Ramba working on that bad boy. Because, it's so sick. So sick.
But that's another like heartbreaking thing, because like, you know, we as fans who like understand the canon of Gundam, we're just like, man, if you guys could just undo this, like think of all the lives you'd save if you just don't do what you're about to do.
Right.
And so it's like the paradoxical dilemma, you know, like as the viewer, it's so fascinating to like think about it.
And I feel like the Gundams were always going to be, well, in that world, the Gundam would always be like the weapon. I feel like if done properly, the Gundams aren't the problem with the war.
Sure.
It's really the sides just will never ever agree or like ever like stop fighting over things that are, depending on who you ask for, rights and you know, privileges and things of that nature, where the houses are divided and they don't want to listen to each other, which is something that they say in one of the intros, I believe. Mm-hmm. They just choose not to cooperate and be one people. And there's so much that can be avoided because it's like they keep adding fuel to the fire. They keep putting more lighter fuel on this fire already, and it just keeps getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And eventually, it can't stop.
Well, it's pretty.
I don't think it ever does.
It's pretty amazing too, because like we're recording this. Today's July 5th, right?
Yep.
All right, July 1st, like Hathaway's Flash, like the new Gundam movie came out.
Watched it, yeah.
Oh my god, it's so good, dude. Woo! It's like if Michael Mann directed a movie about an eco-terrorist and let John Carpenter score it. I loved that movie. It was dope.
Which is, them becoming eco-terrorists was like a thing that I obviously don't know of because it happens later down the road. Mm-hmm. But it's like, dang, all this because we can't leave Earth alone?
Well, it's that, and it's also like, dude, this takes place like in canon, 26 years after the 1 Year War? So then it's like, I'm sorry, I'm trying to do the math, like 35 years after the origin. And so it's like, man, you guys still don't
12
get
years
it.
after Char's counterattack or something like that. Yeah.
No, it's 12 years after Char's counterattack, yeah.
Yeah.
But it's still like, dude, like you've had so many different examples of it like slapping you in the face, and you still refuse to like learn your lesson, you know? And it's like the same fight that's happening in Hathaway's Flash. It's just different names. It's just, oh god, again, like history doesn't repeat, but it rhymes. And it's just the tragic cycle we find these characters in for our entertainment is just, it's so good. I feel so guilty enjoying this show as much as I do, because it is so tragic. Like I can't think of a better word for it, you know? Like it is old Greek style, the saddest shit you could see.
It's an epic, but there's no happy ending. There's no payoff. It's just, hey, you're going to have a lot of death, destruction, and sorrows for your decisions you keep on making. Mm. And it's almost like they kind of predicted the future a little bit, but they're like, hey, guys, we have a chance to stop this. Y'all should stop fighting over this and move on. No. I'm talking about real world stuff. Like, we can apply this to real world examples all day, every day. Yeah. But we, again, don't do it. We don't do the right thing.
Well, yeah, because why do that when you could make money doing the wrong thing, right?
Exactly. I think my final note was that, my final two notes that we finally saw Amuro, so he's not really important until way later. But Sayla has like no growth, just a bunch of sadness and despair, which her growth kind of shoots up later. And like, I think she comes back. She really doesn't come back to like episode 5. She's around in 4, but I don't think she really has like a significant role in it. But it's like, Man, this was a good episode to get everybody else's character moved and pushed forward.
Well, it's
except the one who was titled after.
Dude, it's so sad too, because like Sayla's character, spoilers, really doesn't get a whole lot of development in any of the series. Yeah. And I think part of that is because Yoshihiko Tomino, the guy who like created Gundam and was like the showrunner for a whole bunch of like the first couple series, he like really stressed how important it was to use the same voice actors for the same roles. And I'm pretty sure the woman who voiced Sayla was like either sick or dying for like a bunch of the sequels. And so I think that's why her character like didn't really get much of an appearance. Like she's in the original series and she's great in the original series. And then there's a sequel series called Zeta, and I think she has like 1 or 2 scenes. Damn. And then there's like one character who's like clearly supposed to be Sayla in Char's counterattack, but it's not Sayla. And like as a fan, you just want it to be her so much. But like I think that's when the voice actor got sick. And it's just it's obviously awful that like a real person died, but like just the character herself didn't get the attention that she deserved.
Yeah, like that's why when I watched this episode, I was a little taken aback. Cause I'm like, it's a good episode, but I wouldn't have titled it that. You know,
sure,
I would have found something else to title it. But yeah, I think that's gonna do it for this episode. Do you have any closing thoughts before I like sign off and give some housekeeping on what we're watching next?
Yeah. Again, I was like skeptical to rewatch it because I'm like, I don't remember liking it that much. And I liked it more this time, but I just talking it out, like it's kind of amazing. Like I do this with, I'm not like the biggest anime connoisseur, but like I'll try stuff and be like, yeah, Hunter is okay. And then like I'll talk about it with a friend and I'll just get so fired up about it. I'm like, yeah, shit, no, that's actually like a pretty good series. Like when they fought on that airship, that was really cool, you know, and just like getting like into it. And so just talking about it has just gotten me so excited all over again about this.
I'm glad you were enjoying it. I had a lot of fun too. I know this is the first episode. We'll get it down. I'll do some better show notes and preparing. You know, get the clips. We can watch them ahead of time and whatnot. Now that's on me, but it's gonna be a fun ride. Before I sign off, first, thank you, viewer, and then secondly, most importantly, thank you, George, for spending your time and part of your evening with me. Like I really appreciate it.
Yeah, of course, man. I'm always down to dork out about Gundam.
Yeah. Next time we're gonna gather up and we're gonna watch and talk about episode 3, Dawn of Rebellion, which is a super important episode, probably the second most important episode of this whole series. And then episode 4, Eve of Destiny. So we're gonna go 2 at a time for right now for this series, and then I don't want to jump into 79 right after this one. I'm watching Gundam, the original Mobile Suit Gundam, but I think it might detour and talking about like MSO8 team or something like that. I don't know. If you want to be a host for that, sure, you're more welcome on, but figuring some things out as we go. But we'll see y'all in probably like, I'd say like 2 or 3 weeks or so. But thank y'all for coming by. Y'all be good now. That is going to do it for this episode. Thank you so much, George, for blessing me with your presence and knowledge and helping me through this journey as we go through the Universal Century. Again, episode 1 and 2 on Hulu. In 2 weeks, we will have episode 2, which will cover 3 and 4 of Gundam the Origin. So if you can, please catch up. This is why we're doing it bi-weekly. That way you have enough time to watch the episodes, digest it, rewatch it, maybe take some notes. But we'll be here. We'll be here ready for you. All right, y'all. Discord link is in the description. Hop in there and join the conversation. Find our socials as well in the description. Go ahead and like the podcast. Give it a rating. Sub to it. Share it with your friends, your dog, your sister's dog, your coworkers. All right, I'm starting to ramble, so y'all be good. Stay hydrated, and we'll catch you in a couple of weeks.